A short reading from A Biologist in Paradise, published in 2017 by Jamestown Bookworks. This essay is titled Appalachian Spring. The title of Aaron Copland's musical suite captures the essence of my feelings about Appalachia when nature awakes from a long winter sleep. Springtime arrives late in the Allegheny Mountains, growing slowly like the music until a major arpeggio bursts out of an allegro storm. The gods thunder around our home, which squats timidly in a hollow between dark mountains, and I occasionally see a flashing spear of light thrown from a low cloud to burn some innocent tree with limbs outstretched in surrender. Branches rattle as a breeze chases along the valley, warning of an approaching grey curtain of rain. I can hear it over a mile away. The moaning of trees grows louder until there is urgent drumming on my tin roof. What a primitive wonder to watch a passing storm and listen to its symphony from the safety of the deck where I sit in my rocker, bent over my journal. The wild elements hurry to the next valley, where they continue to vent their rage, leaving behind brighter clouds that gently rise above the mountain ridges. I sniff air washed of dank forest odours, and listen for distant violins and a piccolo playing tender phrases. Apart from the mossy green relief of hemlock crowns, the oak, hickory and beech trees stand in ranks of grey and umber stripes, painted on Middle Mountain in the melancholy months. But of all the promises in life, none is more faithful than the slopes will be covered again in a green mantle. I love it. I have an image of Mr. Copland coming here to seek his muse, because his suite always summons pictures of our mountains. And so I was disappointed when I read it is a musical sketch of a spring wedding in Pennsylvania. But I got over it. I know it doesn't really matter if an abstraction is inspired by something completely different, provided it means something to you. Perhaps the music has transported you to a beloved place and feels just as special as it does for me. I made a road trip through 4 states that straddled the mountain spine. It was May, and daffodils still nodded in the banks, and yellow coltsfoot sprouted beside roads where tires did not compress the gravel. The flowering at higher elevations was a full 3 weeks behind the coastal plain of Virginia, where the season was already marching towards summer. The forest still looked like a host of carbon skeletons, although when I pulled branches down, I saw hopeful buds swelling from the rising sap. It was past time to cut logs for next winter, and tree tappers had already carted away buckets of maple juice to their sugar shacks. It was the best time of year, with the glory of summer still ahead. Winter still clung to the high ridges, ragged lines of trees silhouetted against a Payne's grey sky, offered shade on sunny days for drifts of old snow to blanket roots. Meltwater tumbled down the slopes everywhere, plunging over bare rocks, seeping through leaf litter and moss until it merged into little torrents to refresh streams that run dry in summer. The hasty rush of water eases to a graceful flow in the bottomlands. The watershed draining into streams gathers to rivers that follow country roads winding through valleys and crossing plains all the way to the Gulf or the Chesapeake Bay on the other side of the divide. There are few homes or homesteads in the high country, and traffic is light except for an occasional logging truck. If I see a pickup parked on a grassy verge beside the forest in the fall, I know there is a hunter about. A loud blast echoing around the hills reports he is bagging a squirrel or a wild turkey for the crock pot, and I might see him kneeling to field dress a deer carcass. But in springtime, the forest is almost silent, although never empty. This is the season when local folks gather ramps from the first green carpet over dead leaves. Popular demand for the pungent wild leaf now threatens its former abundance, because I hear it is the new arugula for diners in hot restaurants in New York. The old man who fills his bag with bulbs on our land worries commercial harvesters will strip the hillsides. Ramps are his rite of spring. His wife parboils and fries them with eggs in bacon grease to serve with beans, potatoes and cornbread. Mountaineers celebrate ramp fests in community rooms and church halls, dining on folded tables to a background of traditional tunes played by neighbours on fiddles, guitars and banjos. Richwood is an apt name for the heart of the festival in West Virginia. Ramps are not the only fruits of the forest for those who know where to look. There are blackberries, nuts and morels in the proper season, and secret places where ginseng still holds out. A local lady told me her mother taught her every edible wild plant and mushroom, so she could live off the land if she ever fell on tough times. There are few people like Ernestine to pass down the traditional knowledge, and fewer in the younger generation who care to receive it. Skipping on a page or so. In some future era, I imagine a young couple hiking up the steep slopes of our mountain. They will pause on a grassy knoll to stare across the valley to the round peak of Elk Mountain and enjoy the forest greening in May. They will look down at the ruin they passed on the way up. It had robust cedar sidings and a green metal roof, but all matter decays in a grinding cycle, and nothing lasts forever. After the last owners abandoned the house and the weather took its toll, the frame rotted out and the roof collapsed in a summer storm to make a jumbled heap of wood and steel beside an overgrown path. The woman asks, "Who do you think lived there?" He shrugs his shoulders as he points a camera at her. "This one's for our grandkids." He frames her, standing in front of a twisted hemlock, even older than the house. Click. Soon they will be gone. They haul themselves on low branches, clamber over mossy boulders, and balance on logs over streams until they reach the top. It is rough going until they reach the ridge. Before the ascent, they picked over the junk around the ruin, hoping to find a souvenir like an antique penny or an old rifle cartridge. But the rusted scythe was too heavy to carry home. They didn't find the jar I buried in the dirt near the front door. It was my time capsule. They never dreamt the first owner would leave something for them. For why would he bother, and how would he know they would come? But if they had found it, they could have learned who lived and loved there, about the local man who built the home, the dog that watched for turkeys, and the old-time band that played at a small party to celebrate the opening. They might then imagine him rocking on the deck and deep in thought as a storm passes over the mountain. His mind was often captive to that music, which cast back to people who came before, a Shawnee hunting party, a pioneer farmer looking for a level patch, and a weary pair of loggers carrying a saw. Their lives were but breezes that pass unnoticed through the forest. But someone will come there one day to make a new home and find my story before it crumbles in the jar.